Hi, welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I want to tell you all about my skin and specifically how I got the skin that I currently have today. It's been quite a journey in my life and there are a lot of different phases to kind of talk you through, and I think that it'll be informational for you. This has been a long journey in learning about skin type, learning about my particular skin. I'm in my 40s and I'm still on the hunt for the right skincare for me. If that's you, then I hope that you will get something out of this video. And with that, let's get into how I got the skin that I have today. So my background is that I'm half Korean and half Caucasian. My Caucasian side is a mix between Irish and English and other things sprinkled in. So that means that I have very combination skin in general. Now, my skin has actually undergone complete 180 changes over my lifetime since about 13, which is when I hit puberty and my skin changed. And then as I've progressed in age, I've undergone a lot of different skin types. I come from a family where both my parents had acne, and there are 5 kids in my family and all of us had acne. I unfortunately had the worst acne of all of the kids in my family. A large part of that was because in high school I had no idea what to do for my skin. I had no direction on how diet affected my acne. I had no information about how to care for my skin. My family was too poor to afford things like being able to go to a dermatologist or anything. So I was truly all on my own. So my acne hit in the summer between 7th and 8th grade. I was about 13 years old and I didn't really notice that I had developed acne. I didn't notice it, and honestly, until I got my ASB card. That was the first time I really noticed that I had acne, and it was really surprising. Now, mind you, this was 30 some odd years ago, so this was long before YouTube existed and long before I had access to the internet to do any research. So I was completely on my own. And basically, all I knew at that point was that I needed to keep my face clean. I needed to wash my face. So that's what I started doing. With what little money I had, I would babysit here and there. But I remember going to the grocery store and learning everything I needed to know about how to treat my acne by reading the backs of boxes. So the 2 things I picked up was, one, a clear orange Neutrogena bar of soap. It was just a facial bar of soap. And the second thing was an acne spot treatment. And it was probably Clearasil brand. I don't remember. Whatever they had at the grocery store, whatever I could afford, I could only afford 2 things. So those were the 2 things that I picked up. I had no concept of understanding what oily skin meant, what dry skin meant, what sensitive skin meant. All I knew was that I needed acne treatment. And so I didn't pick up anything like a moisturizer or a toner or anything else. There were a whole bunch of things on the shelves, but I didn't pick up any of those things. And the other thing that I remember learning from my brothers and my dad actually was that I should avoid oils because an excess of oily skin can cause acne. I had armed myself with everything I thought I needed to cure my acne. I only used a bar of soap and the Zit cream for years, and not surprisingly, my acne got a lot worse. Every single year it got worse and worse and worse. And I remember how horrible my skin felt. I remember the first time I washed my face and that bar of soap was so harsh. It was so drying. I finished washing my face and it felt like my face was going to crack the minute I spoke or made any facial expression. And that was what I understood was what you wanted to treat your acne. You wanted your face oil-free, completely stripped of any oil. After I had washed my face with this unbelievably drying bar of soap, I then applied the spot treatment. And the acne for me was the worst on my cheeks and on my forehead. That's where it started. And it was just the little pimples, just not a big deal. But it was always on my cheeks and on my forehead. And so I applied the Zit cream after I had washed my face with that harsh bar of soap and it was already super dry. And then I applied this Zit cream on top, which dried it out even more. And not surprisingly, I didn't notice a big difference after washing my face regularly. I would do it twice a day, once in the morning and once at night. And I didn't notice much of a difference using the Zit cream. And I don't think any of that's surprising because I wasn't dealing with the actual crux of the problem, which was hormonal changes, and I wasn't dealing with my diet at all. My diet consisted of whatever the free school lunch was. So mostly pretty greasy stuff, I would imagine. Pretty highly refined foods that were high in grease. So that's just what I ate because that was the only option I had. By the time my senior year came around, I had these deep sebaceous cysts everywhere. My face was bright red, in so much pain. It was so bad. My face was deformed around my jawline and around my cheeks. It was the worst, and into my temples and all across my forehead. I mean, just everywhere. And I had gotten my senior pictures that year, and I had asked the photographer to airbrush the acne out of the picture. I was so embarrassed by it that I wanted to pretend it didn't exist. And I can't show you a picture of my senior picture because I don't have them anymore, but it wasn't how I actually looked at the time. I don't have any pictures to show you. In fact, I didn't want my picture taken ever. And I tried to play it off like it wasn't affecting me, like it wasn't a big deal. But of course, being a high schooler, it was a big deal and it really bothered me. So when I had the option with my senior pictures to have my acne airbrushed out, I jumped on that chance. So about 7 years into dealing with this acne problem nonstop and it progressively getting worse over those 7 years, I finally asked my dad to help me pay for Accutane. I can't remember how I heard about Accutane, but I do remember that I had found a dermatologist somehow, I'm not sure how, and I had asked my dad if he could help me pay for Accutane because it would be about several $1,000s. I think about $3,500 because you're on it for 3 to 4 months, and it's not just the medication, which is a pill twice a day, but it's also regular doctor's visits and regular blood draws to make sure you're not pregnant and to make sure that you're in good health, the entire regimen. My dad agreed to help me pay for Accutane, and my acne was at the worst ever in my life by that point. At this time, I'm 20 years old, almost 21 years old. I will never forget my first visit to the dermatologist. He didn't have the best bedside manner, that's for sure. He looked at me like I was a walking disease. He treated me like he was disgusted, and he didn't want to come too close to me, and he certainly didn't want to touch my face, even with gloves on. Like, he had gloves on, didn't matter. He didn't want to come near me, and he did not want to touch my face to do a proper examination. In one flash of an instant, at examining my face, he determined, yes, you're an appropriate candidate for Accutane. We're going to start you immediately. I cannot tell you how excited I was to take that first pill because I knew that in 3 to 4 months, all of my acne would be gone. Now, I didn't know what else to expect. I did understand before taking the Accutane that I could experience some sensitivity and some dryness in my face. Totally fine, totally willing to accept those issues just to be able to get rid of my acne. Now, I had a pretty nondescript Accutane experience, actually. It was very straightforward. I had the typical symptoms. My skin was a little bit dry, was a little bit redder than normal. I didn't mind it. I didn't have any severe cracking on my lips or anything like that. No, nothing terrible happened. And I was in perfect health the whole time. So my skin actually responded very well. Let me tell you, by the end of the 3 or 4 months, whatever it was for me, I had no more acne. I had no more pain in my face. It was incredible how awesome I felt. It was the first time in 8 years that I had felt confident finally again. Now, the aftermath of that, my skin was still very red. It took a long time, a lot of years to have that redness calm down. On top of that, my skin type completely changed. It went from oily, massively oily, to dry and sensitive. Super sensitive to sun. So I always had to protect my skin, and I could feel anytime I went out into the sun. This is so funny because I just remembered this right now as I was thinking back. I remember going out in the sun and feeling like, oh my goodness, the sun is so intense. It feels like my skin is burning the second I stepped out into the sun. So yeah, it was very sensitive for a long time. That redness, that dryness, that lasted for a long time. I want to say probably the better part of 2 years it took before my skin started to become less red and a little bit less dry. What I was left with was severe scarring. Even though I didn't pick at my zits a lot, I was actually surprisingly pretty good about that. It didn't matter. It was such severe acne, it just left a ton of scarring. After my Accutane treatment, I didn't have much better information. I was still using, harsh cleansers and zit cream primarily. I think I did add in a moisturizer eventually, and I remember feeling really frustrated. I felt so defeated because I still didn't feel like I had nice skin. I had a lot of scarring. It was still really red. It was still really dry, and it felt overreactive with oiliness. And I still ended up getting a couple of pimples here and there. So finally, after dealing with the dryness, the redness, the same routine for about 10 plus years, I finally decided that I really wanted to do something more for my face because I hadn't seen a huge difference in 10 years, and I still had a ton of really deep scarring all over my face. I really wanted to do something about it. So I decided that in 2009, I would actually do a very intense laser resurfacing surgery. And you can Google laser resurfacing procedures today, and that's not what my procedure was. Mine was general anesthesia. It took off all the top layers of my skin on my face. It was supposed to be a 10-day recovery period before I could go back to work. But it took me 2+ weeks, and it took even months after that before I felt like my skin was finally fully healed. My surgeon recommended that I do the most I possibly could topically before surgery so that I could get the best results out of my surgery. So what he recommended was that I go on this prescriptive strength Obagi New Derm skincare system. And what it did was completely resurface my skin. It was just the most elaborate skin care system I had ever done in my life. It was cleansing, it was toning, it was exfoliating, just all of this stuff. 2 months before my surgery I started this, and by the time I got to my surgery date, I had almost a new face of skin. Granted, I mean, I still had all of the scarring and everything, but all of the old dead skin cells had been completely exfoliated by that point. So my skin was as prepped as it could possibly be for my surgery. After the surgery, I continued the Obagi New Derm system. It was what my surgeon recommended, and by that point it was just the best of the best skincare that I could possibly do for my face following a surgery like that you spend so much money on, you invest so much in. After 3-4 months of healing, I had brand new baby skin on my face. Now, I still had a lot of scarring, and you can still see that I have scarring. The surgery only actually reduced the scarring about 30%. And that's not actually a lot. It's a huge improvement to what it used to be, but it's actually not that much. So I had all this brand new baby skin, but I still had quite a bit of scarring. Over the years, the scarring has gone down even more. So I'm still happy I did it. I would absolutely do it all over again. I wouldn't do it a second time, but I would have chosen the surgery again. So now that I had this brand new skin on my face, I had to be extremely vigilant to protect it because it was obviously very sensitive and very prone to sunburn. So I had hats all the time and sunglasses all the time and wore SPF all the time, no exceptions. And in fact, I had to start wearing makeup to cover the scarring left from the surgery itself until my skin fully healed. And so that was the first time in my life where I was really wearing a lot of foundation and actually applying it every day before I even went out of the house. It was such a lifestyle change I can't even explain, because before that point I didn't have a skincare routine and I certainly didn't wear makeup. After about 6, 7, 8 months of healing, I was left with very dry and sensitive skin, but I also had an oily T-zone. And by that point, I had decided I couldn't afford that Obagi New Derm skincare system anymore. And not only was it prescriptive strength, so I always had to go back to the doctor to get it refilled, but it was just hundreds of dollars, so I couldn't afford it anymore. So I dropped that whole system and I tried to replace those products with a more simplified routine that was more cost effective. Then the next phase, I would say, of my skin type, if you will, was the next 10 years plus after my surgery. That period I call the pill period, because I was on the pill, and while on the pill I didn't have any acne at all, not even one little pimple ever. I still had the residual redness. It was a little bit dry, very sensitive, oily T-zone. In this time, I had discovered YouTube, and specifically all these great YouTubers putting out information about skincare routines. I've noticed 3 main types of YouTubers when it comes to skincare. One is the 10 to 15 years younger than me group who don't have any of the anti-aging concerns that I have. The second group are the people that have a lot more money than me and they buy all of this luxury skincare. And that also doesn't fit me because I can't afford all that stuff. And then the third category, the main category that I've come across, are the 50+ women who are in some menopausal phase, who are trying to undo all of the damage they did to their skin in their youth. I'm finding that nobody is catering to my age range, to my skincare concerns, and my budget, and my patience. Now this brings it all back to this particular channel, and in particular why I'm on a no-buy year. Because I have in this time been searching and searching, just spinning around in circles, trying to find answers and grabbing anything that makes sense or is close to what I need. And none of the skincare products that I have landed on, that I currently own, are really truly doing it. They are problematic in one way or another. Now, I'm not saying they're bad products. In fact, they're all very good products. They are the most wonderful products I've actually ever used. But I'm at this point where I don't have a lot of sun damage to repair, but I want to hold on to my youth for as long as possible. And I know I can do that largely just by wearing sunscreen and by wearing hats, but I want to do more for my skin. There are main things that I want to take care of still. I have pretty much the same skin that I've had for the last 5+ years or so. And it's very dry, and every day I have to exfoliate because it's flaky dry. And I also still have a lot of scarring that I'm dealing with and redness that I want to try to alleviate. So those are the main concerns that I'm still dealing with today that my current skincare isn't doing enough for. And if you are anything like me and you're frustrated with wasting your money on skincare products that aren't working for you, I am here to share my journey with you in hopes that it helps you weed through a lot of the information that's out there, because there is so much. I plan to share all of the information I learn along the way so that it helps you too. And with that, thank you for letting me share my story with you, and thank you for spending your time with me. Until my next video, which will be very soon, I hope you have a great rest of your day.